Hello, it's Dan, the Real Estate Guy again. I'm really excited about this block of information. It's one of my favorite topics, and that is booms and busts. Depending on your age, you may have witnessed several booms and busts over the years in real estate. But the overwhelming question I always like to ask people is that after a boom, where prices have gone sky high, and then after the bust, when they've gone back in the dirt, so to speak, way lower, how often, what percentage of the time, do they usually return? If you look at the history of real estate and the way prices have been tracked since the beginning of real estate, the answer to that question is 100% of the time. What changes is the time period it takes to get there. So this one seems like a bigger boom and a bigger bust. Maybe it will take longer for prices to return. What I like about it is the prices went so low that even if they only went back halfway back up, everyone who owns property will do pretty well. Even if rents go back up, rents have dropped a little bit recently. Even if they go up a little bit, but you already set yourself up for positive cash flow, you're going to be in some pretty good shape. So in my 50 years on this planet, I've really only witnessed 3 booms and busts. The first one, I like to say I was safe in college. The late 70s, it ran up pretty high. The early 80s, boom, fell pretty hard. Prime rate hit 21% while I was in college, safe. I wasn't doing any transactions. Didn't even know that I would do real estate transactions at that point. Hadn't really chose that as my wealth building vehicle. The second boom and bust, I worked real hard thinking it was the only one I was ever going to see, and I set myself up for life. And this one's bigger. So it's just an exciting opportunity for anybody who wants to jump in and get this done. As you might recall, the market took off 88, 89, 90 in my area, probably similar time period in your area. Pretty much peaked around May of 1990 or so. And then the values fell 24% over a 3-year period, which felt like a pretty good drop at the time. I did buy and sell ahead of that. It wasn't as steep as this last decline. Nobody knew where it was going to stop, but once it was off 10 or 15%, most of us felt like we could buy and sell properties, and the people who buy our properties aren't going to get hurt. They might buy it, it might have went down a little bit more, and then zoom, it took off again. But very interesting that at every boom and bust, it provides opportunity. You reach periods of time, and this happened in the 90s, where there were very few transactions going on, and people really didn't like real estate at all. And we used to joke that, hey, when people hate real estate, that's the time to buy it. When people love it and they're wrestling on the lawn for your house, multiple offers when you put a house on the market, that certainly seems like the time to sell it, And when you think about that, it just goes to basic market concepts. That is supply and demand. What affects supply and what affects demand could be different in every boom and bust. But in every boom and bust, when the prices are going sky high, there's more demand for the product, more people want homes, more people qualified. This last round was caused by easy to get money, I guess you could call it, lowering the requirements to borrow money, it would appear. It's obvious now. But so many people could get in the marketplace, there weren't enough houses. In Sacramento County, there was about 3,500 listings on the market most of the time during that time, with about 1,800 sales per month. That's a pretty fast-moving market. There was at least 1,800 or so, 2,000 going on the market, which kept the inventory fairly flat, but everybody who wanted to sell a property pretty much could sell a property. Usually they had multiple offers. Usually those offers were higher, they bid for the property basically. The houses I bought and sold from 01 to 05, often I could look at the comps and ask a little bit more, and I'd still have multiple offers. I could tell an appraiser, I don't know what you're going to do here. The last couple of appraisals, or not appraisals, but closings were lower than this one, same model. They just said doesn't matter, and they'd bring it in and they'd do the deal. The lenders wanted to loan the money. We can see now that maybe that wasn't a bright idea, but requiring a bailout later. But bottom line is it's always supply and demand. In the 90s, or excuse me, go back to the 80s when I was safe in college, I graduated 82, when prime rate hit 21%, nobody was borrowing money to buy property. So if you were selling a home and you didn't want to do seller financing, in other words, carry the loan, you probably weren't going to get your home sold. So that's what was happening back then. Right now, in my area, there's still about 1,500 closings per month. A lot of that could be REOs, real estate owned by banks, some short sales, and then some guys like me who purchased a property, fixed it up, and sold it. But it's always supply and demand. Very interesting. If the prices only go back halfway to where they were, I'm looking at the board over there, I just paid $86,000 for a condo that sold for $290,000 at the top. So I'm going to sell that property for about $120,000 now. That's about its value, about $120 to $122. But what if I rented that property? It's a condo, so I'd have an association fee and all that. But what if I just rented it? Could it go back to half of the, halfway between what it's worth now, $120,000, and $290,000? Absolutely, absolutely could happen. We would just need some kind of supply and demand situation to get better as far as the demand. Now, I happen to believe that when in these booms and busts, when the market does find its bottom, it will stay there a long time. I think in this case, it will stay even longer, and we'll go into that in another video. But the last one was down about 6 years. Peaked in 90, went down to 93, 24%, then stayed flat for about 6 years. From 93 to 99, not much happened. As we all know now, 99, 2000, 01, 3, 4, 5, the curve was straight up. I remember being very nervous from about 2003 on. I kept seeing what I call signs of a top, but it just kept going. And it kept going because that money was being lent to anybody who wanted it. I used to say, wow, I guess if you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan. And then I thought at some point they threw the mirror away. So everybody could get in the market. I want to give you a quick story on one of the what I call signs of the top. Remember, my oldest boy got me back in the business after I didn't work for a couple of years. It was around 01, in that time frame, maybe a little bit later. I noticed right away that things were moving pretty quick, even then. Hadn't really started going really fast yet, but it just seemed a little odd to me. But one time we get a call. One of the techniques we're going to teach you is the non-owner occupant letter. It goes out to folks who have a rental property that hasn't transferred in years, hasn't put a loan on it, and we just offer them a way to sell their home quickly for cash for under retail value. And it seems like, why would anybody do that? We're going to go into that in that block, but there's plenty of reasons why people would take that proposal. We end up buying one in the neighborhood for $91,000. We put, probably in that case, it was carpet and paint and some landscaping, probably $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 in repairs. Clear pest report, all the things we're going to teach you later. But we sell that property for $171,000. So $91,000, we sell it for $171,000, somewhere in that area. I think I comped it out at $175,000 or so, $179,000, and sell it somewhere around $171,000. I have to look it up in the records, but right in there. So, we do pretty good on the property. It's a very good transaction for us. 1 year later, because in our mailers, we don't bother people. We don't hit them every month. But about a year later, we hit that same zip code. We got a call from that neighborhood, and it's nearly the same house. It's about the same model, a block or two away. And I'm running my comps, remembering we sold ours for around $171,000, somewhere in that range. Paid $91,000, sold it for one, good transaction. As I'm running my comps, I can't believe it, but they're worth $275,000 now. It literally had only been about 12 months. To me, that's a sign of a top. Because the folks that live and work, that live in that neighborhood and have jobs, houses shouldn't go up $100,000 in 1 year. It seems too much, too quick. I'm thinking to myself, and I was always trying to point these signs of a top, a sign that a crash is coming, so to speak, to my boys. And I told them, do you think the people that work, maybe it's a county job, a state job, or some other job, do you think they're getting raises every week, every month? They could pay $170 and now they can pay $270, $275. Everybody had the attitude that real estate would just keep going up. Well, I can tell you that, and what I told them at the time, if that price goes from $275 to $300, which it did, and then $305 was about the top for that neighborhood, at some point, people can't buy those. The folks that have the types of jobs, the types of lifestyle, and that live in those neighborhoods, at some point they can't buy that house. Therefore, there'd be no demand. And if there's no demand, there's going to be no sales. So people asking 305 at the top, some of them did sell, but let's say, you know, the demand is going away. People aren't going to pay 305 or 310 or 320 for those homes. So now anybody who has to sell their property, they got a job transfer, a divorce, a death, whatever, they got to sell their property. They're going to sit there for a while, and then they're going to have to start dropping them again until somebody says, oh yeah, you know what, I'll buy that house for whatever, you know, back down to 275 perhaps. But that's what happens with supply and demand. And like I said, what affects supply and demand every time, every market is different. You know, during that boom time, I had friends in real estate call me up and want my opinion on what's going to happen. I told every one of them to batten down the hatches. If you have properties you want to sell, sell it. If you have properties you want to keep, put them in a situation where they cash flow and you can keep them. Because I said to them, the market is going to crash, and it's going to crash hard. And you know, my friends in real estate, some have been in real estate longer than me, working as agents or brokers, they would tell me, no, Dan, this time's different. And I cannot tell you how many people told me this time's different. I always told them, you're right, it is different. It's a different year, but we have an overheated market. You know, investors have a saying, you can't throw a brick straight up hard enough to where it won't come back down. And this market moved up too fast. It was obvious that it had to crash. People would ask me then, well, how much? And I said, well, I just know it's more than what it did in the 90s. In the 90s, values fell 24% on average. It's got to be more than that. Is it 35%, I was wondering? You know, and a friend throws out 40%. I thought the 40% sounded like a big number at the time, and it made me cringe a little bit. Because it's hard. As an investor, it's hard to plan, you know, when you got stuff like that going on. We literally slowed down our business and did less transactions, wondering what was going to happen and when it was going to happen, but we knew it was going to happen. We just didn't want to sit around waiting. All right? So we kept our business going, but we did a thing where we treated properties, we called it a hot potato. You buy the property under market, even though that market's really high, you got to get it below that. You carpet it, you paint it, and you toss it to the next buyer, providing the best product, the best condition at that time. But our thought was, how much longer can this go on? And of course it went on far longer than we ever expected, but it was getting quite obvious that something had to give. And it did. And it fell hard, as you know. In our area, that 40% number, we smashed through that a long time ago. Many neighborhoods are off 50% from the top. I just mentioned the Danbrook property sold for $290 and now it's worth $120. That's a pretty big number. I'm looking for some other ones there. Probably Sequoia there. We just sold it for $199. That had to be at least $350 at the top. I'd have to check it out. I have another condo that somebody paid $252 for it, and it was before the top. So it probably went up to $270. We just sold it for $118,000. We think it's worth $125. We did a win-win transaction on that one, giving somebody some equity. So we did the hot potato thing during that market. The market did fall, and what I'm asking you and what I'm telling you basically is you need to take advantage. Do you want to take advantage of the booms and the busts? You want to get in when it's low, and do you want me to guide you through that? Because I can. I've been there. I've done that. I'm doing it again. And I'm going to take some folks with me along the way, and we can all benefit from that. We can all improve our lifestyle in the future. Remember, it's not get rich. We're not talking private jets here. We're just talking about a lifestyle that allows you perhaps to have every day be Saturday. So, you know, take a good hard look at the videos, keep working on them, and build your knowledge, and we'll be in good shape. One other thing I always like to talk about is don't be the guy who said, who would have thunk? Because now that you know about this, now that you know you could do it, don't be that guy 15 years from now, you're talking to your neighbor and you say, hey, you remember when the house around the corner sold for, you know, $82,000 or, you know, some low number, $125,000? Yeah, that was the one that was $450 at the top, and it sold for $125, and we're here 10, 15 years from now, we're here, well, yeah, you know, we had the chance to buy that. You know, I understand it just sold again, you know, $399. You know, they'd say, well, who would have thunk, you know? Well, I'm telling you, me. I think that way. I know this stuff is going back up. Don't know when. And I'm going to teach you to set it up so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when it goes back up. You can benefit all the way. You can set some properties up to do what I call pay you to wait. Where is the next great market? Is it 10 years away? Is it 15 years away? Am I planning on being here? Well, if I'm going to be here, are you planning on being around? If you're going to be around, wouldn't it be nice to have some properties that you bought now over the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years, so that when those stories are being told, you've got the property to sell around the corner for $399 that you paid $125 for, and it paid you, because you had good tenants over the years, it paid you a positive cash flow all the way until then. You can also use the buy-sell technique, where you're going to buy and sell some properties. Remember, I'm suggesting you to do both. You might get a rental, like that rental, it's a great rental, but you wish you had a little bit less debt. So you're buying and selling properties so that you can, what I call, chunk that debt down. So you get it to where it really is paying you well to wait. Maybe you get some extra properties so that when the next curve happens, this is a great technique, by the way, what if you ended up with 10 properties? The next curve happens, the thing screams up on you. Remember, when it does happen, don't sell in year 1, don't sell in year 2, usually about the 3rd year before it's time to sell. But harvest, I call that the harvest. You grew an equity garden, you've got properties with equity in them, you waited, you got paid to wait, it helped your lifestyle, maybe it allowed you to switch jobs to something you enjoy more, that pays less, or it allowed you to take your time and get a better job that pays more because you didn't feel the pressure. You see? So it improves your life as you go, but there'll be a harvest time. When the people are wrestling on the lawns again for the houses and they're going up too fast, which will happen, it's happened every time so far. I wouldn't bet money that it's not going to happen this time. But when it's time, what if you had 10 houses and you could sell 3 or 4 and free and clear the other ones because they went up so much in value that you could sell those, take the proceeds, pay the other ones off. Now your family has 4, 5, 6 houses that have no monthly payments. All you're doing is paying the utilities, the taxes. Your tenants are going to pay their own utilities, but in our area we pay a county utility for the water, sewer, trash. It's different in every area. You're going to learn those things. You're going to pay property taxes on that property. You're going to pay some upkeep. You know, once in a while they're going to need a roof, or once in a while they're going to need something. But you have no payments. You know, what are rents going to be back, at that time? If it's in our area, $1,200 a month now, and things heat up again 10 years from now, who knows? Those could be $1,500, they could be $1,600, $1,800, doesn't matter. But it's going to be some good number, and it's going to pay your family every month, and it's going to give you freedom. Remember, it's not always about the money, it's about the freedom that it provides. So don't be the guy that tells the story. I mean, some of you are real estate people, and you're going to tell stories about how you helped people buy in these down markets, but you didn't end up with any. Don't do that. That's all wrong, right? Don't handle the best wealth building vehicle there is and not get some for you. I mean, come on. Be your own best customer, all right? You can be your own best customer. So you can capture and you can build equity all the time, even in the flat markets, and you can get paid to wait. You can take advantage of every boom and bust. Like I thought the one in the 90s was my only one. If you're, under 35 right now, you're likely to see another one. So who knows? But take advantage, understand what causes booms and busts, know your market cold, buy when it's low, and it's low now, use proper techniques, and then get yourself paid to wait for the next great market. Next we're going to do a video basically for an overview of the basics, and then we're going to move into the juicy stuff. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.